How's everyone doing today? This episode of the podcast is sponsored by 101 CBD, the makers of premium raw CBD oil products. Now, we live in modern times with modern stresses, and luckily their chill blend is there to help quiet the mind and get us back to a state of zen. And luckily their alleviate blend is there to help with the inflammation that's starting to show up with these mystery aches and pains that we get. And you can pick both of those up in the delicious new flavor of blueberry. Speaking of which, they have great safe flavors for our pets like the bacon and salmon. And don't forget that because the raw CBD oil is sourced from commercial hemp, it can be shipped coast to coast, nationwide, and practically around the world without a problem. So you can share it with your friends and family. So go over to 101cbd.org, order yourself some raw CBD oil today. And because you are a listener of the In My Grow Show, you can save 25% on that order when you use coupon code IMGS25 at checkout. Something else I want you to know about is that on March 27th, 28th, and 29th of 2020, that is when they're holding the Science of Organic Regenerative Cannabis Cultivation Conference, and that will be held at Whitmore Lake in Michigan. Now, I'm telling you this because if you've ever wanted to pick up some of that Uncle John's Farms genetic gear, that's going to be a good place to find them because Lorax will be there with those seeds and clones that you're looking for. That is March 27th, 28th, and 29th at Whitmore Lake in Michigan. All right, now let's start the show. Brothers and sisters, what's going on? Welcome back to the In My Grow Show, the podcast dedicated to taking the mystery out of cannabis. Once again, I'm your host, Alex. And I want to thank you for taking the time to hang out with me. A little later, I'm going to play a conversation that I had with my buddy Jaime Campbell. But before we get into any real part of the show, I want to talk about a few things. The first thing is that I've been getting a lot of calls from Michigan since they went legal with cannabis back in December. Either it's from blueberry farmers who are thinking about switching over to cannabis or hemp, or different people in the industry out there who are finally going to embrace hemp and cannabis production like out loud, like out in public, instead of making everybody talk in code and asking them about their tomato plants. But again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on. The other thing I wanted to get into was a couple of really messed up stories. One that I read and one that somebody told me about. Mostly about just how cannabis cultivation is under attack, or I guess cannabis itself is under attack from different industries. So the first one I want to talk about is something that I read in a book called Hemp Husbandry. Yeah, I think the copy that I read came out in either 2000 and 2009. I don't remember. But there's a section in there talking about wilt that attacks... I know it attacks hemp. I'm not exactly sure if this particular form of wilt attacks cannabis. But the wilt that they were talking about in this story is caused by Fusarium oxysporum. And it says it first appears on 3-month-old plants as a yellowish green color or small dark spot on the lower leaves, which die but remain hanging. The plant may bend to the side of the stem that is affected. Okay, now I want to give a definition for a mycoherbicide that I got off of Wikipedia. And this is going to help us understand this little piece of the story that I'm about to read. It says a mycoherbicide is a herbicide based on a fungus. As a biological agent, these mycoherbicides work by producing toxic compounds that dissolve the cell walls of targeted plants. Unlike traditional herbicides, mycoherbicides can reproduce themselves and linger in the soil for many years to destroy replanted crops. Dig that, right? That's a trip. Okay, so a story that I read says in 1999, a company called AgBioCon, a Montana company, offered the world a mutated strain of Fusarium oxysporum, the one that causes that hemp wilt, as a mycoherbicide against cannabis. An utterly insane promotion that has instigated lawsuits to cease and desist. Fusarium mutates very easily and spreads to other crops. It has become an environmental disaster. So get that, back in 1999, this company, AgBioCon from Montana, put out this mycoherbicide specifically to kill cannabis and to linger in the soil. But I guess, it also mutated and started attacking other kinds of crops. So, that's pretty sinister, man. The other story I wanted to talk about was something that a buddy of mine told me about. I saw him a couple of days ago. Really smart guy, really stand-up guy. He doesn't make shit up. He's not a bullshitter. He's an engineer, and he was working for, I believe he was working for a winemaker, a vitner. And he was telling me that this winemaker, one season lately, went out and purchased, I don't know, like 10 or 20 male plants and put them throughout his vineyard. And the reason for this was because in one of the neighboring farms was a commercial cannabis grower. He was an outdoor grower, a sun-grown grower, so this winemaker wanted to open pollinate this guy's fields just so his crop would fail. That's pretty fucked up. That's some cold, cold stuff, man. But it just, I don't know, just illustrates what cannabis is up against, I don't know if this guy just really doesn't like cannabis because it competes with his bottom line, or because the cannabis industry, pushes up the cost of the labor force in their surrounding areas. Who knows, man? But that's some pretty cold stuff. Both of those stories are pretty mean. But I just wanted to start the show off and share that with you guys. All right. Now let's get to the strain of the week. Today I'm going to give it up to the Magic Melon, which is a cross between the mango trees, the Honeydew Melon, and the Mango Sherbert. Now this is a very fruity, kind of tropical smelling sativa. It is very melony, very like an overripe melon almost. But it's crazy because it has, like at the end, it's got this really kind of fuelie taste to it. A little gassy taste to it. I don't know what that was. Now the Magic Melon is not a very heavy hitter. It's a very nice, low, light high. If you're going to go to a party and just chill out and relax with some friends, roll yourself up a couple of joints of the Magic Melon. It'll go great with it. And since it's not a heavy sativa, it's really good for getting work done by. So, if you want to show up to work high or get high in the middle of the day, the Magic Melon would be good for that. Because it is nice and uplifting, nice and energetic. Not too energetic to where you're just like talking to everybody, or at least me. I get really fucking chatty when I get really high. So it doesn't put me in that situation. Like I said, just lets me focus. So check it out, Magic Melon. If you see it out there in the wild, pick some up and take it to a party. See what your friends think. All right, now next, let's get to the social media feed. The first thing I want to talk about is that I went to the Arroyo Verde Farms community tour. That happened yesterday, Saturday, and they are a commercial cannabis cultivation farm out there in beautiful Carpinteria, California. It was really awesome. They handed out free tickets to go to their facilities, all the greenhouses, the the flower greenhouses, where and how they, cut up the clones, how they put them together. That was a really good thing to see. That was awesome. I had a great time. I learned a couple of things, which means it was not a waste of my time. I was really impressed by a couple of things also. One of the really, really impressive things was their odor control. Because it was so good that even in the flowering greenhouse, I could barely smell the bud that was there, and there was a lot of bud. They were growing some fire. All throughout it, though, the really great thing, I kept spying the Cherry AK, which, as you know, is one of my favorite strains. But, it was really impressive, that odor control. And even when you were standing outside in front of the greenhouses, you couldn't smell anything. I forget what Barry, the owner, the guy who was giving the tour, I forget what he said they were using, but he said it's been an ongoing process. It's something they've been battling for a while, but it seems like they've really got it down, because I know that was one of the really big issues for the residents of that town was the smell, man. When the first year that they harvested, people were upset because it was just dank everywhere, just some great smelling bud. It didn't bother me. I like the smell of bud, but a lot of people didn't, A lot of people didn't in that town, and I understand that. So good on you, Arroyo Verde Farms, for doing these community tours, man. It was great. They told me that they're going to have other tours here in the future, so if you see it, check their Instagram page. That is at Arroyo Verde Farms. If you're in the 805, sign up for one of the tours, man. They're a lot of fun. And real quick, one of the really crazy things about that tour is that I ran into Kristen from SBVerde. Man, I see that chick everywhere. But what's up, Kristen? How you doing, man? Shout out. All right, now I want to talk a little bit about cloning. And yes, this does go with the social media, because one of the people that I follow, and I don't want to give out their name because I don't think I really got permission to use their handle, so I don't want to just give out what their Instagram account is. But one of the things that was cool that he was, trying to describe to me, or, pretty much told me how to do it, told everybody really, was he was cloning in a cup of water, which I love to do. I'm a big fan of cloning in a cup of water, especially if I'm not in a hurry to clone. Because if I'm in a hurry, if I want a bunch of clones real quick, within, 7 to 10 days, I'll use a cloner. I'll make a cloner. It goes real easy, real quick. But if I'm not in a hurry, I'm just, topping plants or trimming them on, I just want to just propagate some clones. I'll just put them in a cup of water, change the water every few days. Well, this dude was doing that. And then as soon as he saw her roots starting to come out of the clone, he would cover it in aloe, like the aloe gel, like you milk or harvest aloe. You kind of shave off the outer skin and then kind of press out the aloe juice with your fingers. It's a little messy, but you get the idea of what you need to do. I've seen people use, butter knife or spoons, whatever. But what he does is he gets that cutting with the little nubs of the root coming out, and he'll coat it all completely with the aloe and then stick it in his growing medium. And he says he's had a bunch of success. So I'm going to try that next time. He also says he's tried it with raw honey. So I'm going to try that also. And I guess it's the same process. As soon as you see the little nodes of root coming out, you just coat them and stick them in your medium. Yeah, so there you go. I'm going to try that out. Now, as I said earlier about Michigan people reaching out and asking advice about just growing cannabis and hemp, I got an email from a woman who works for a company, a big ag company that specializes in crop inputs, that has an office out there in Michigan. And since Michigan, she was telling me that since Michigan just completely embraced cannabis, both, recreational and hemp, that now they're going to start openly accepting cannabis cultivating clients and hemp cultivating clients, or at least in a bigger number. Really nice woman, really smart woman. Her name was Rachel Miller. And she asked me a couple of questions. One of them was the relationship of sulfur and CBD and the relationship of nitrogen and THC. The best I could really tell her about sulfur is that, it's used as a catalyst for essential oil production. A lot of us growers like to use a sulfurated molasses in flowering because it has that sugar and that sulfur help with those essential oil productions. And we also know that sulfur through the vegetative state, it helps with chlorophyll and amino acids, a couple of other things. It helps create a good root zone. It helps create strong branches, to help hold up those buds in flowering. And since they are involved with oil production, they also help out a little in the terpene production. So it all kind of goes hand in hand. But the other part of her question, she was wondering if there was a connection between the amount of nitrogen that we feed the plant and the amount of THC that plant produces. And she seemed like she was asking if there's a hard number, like a correlation, if I have a nitrogen ppm of 114, what does that correlate to the percentage of THC? Is there a hard number? And as far as I knew, there isn't a hard number. I couldn't find one. The best thing I could do is I sent her something that I read in one of my books. And I'm going to read a little excerpt from the book. And the heading is Cultivating for Cannabinoids. And it starts off. According to a United Nations study, 5 factors are necessary for the cultivation of cannabis for high resin production. 1. Genotype. 2. Photoperiod. 3. NPK. 4. At least 60 to 80 centimeter separation between plants, and 5. Optimum temperature of the ground at the time of sowing. Resin production is minimal at 44 degrees Fahrenheit. It goes on to say the production of cannabinoids THC, CBN, CBD, etc. is greatly influenced by nutrients. As soil nitrogen increases relative to magnesium, CBD increases relative to CBN. Increasing the ratio of nitrogen to copper increases the level of CBD. Low to medium levels of phosphorus produces a high level of CBD, but CBD decreases with high levels of phosphorus. Low levels less than 40 ppm of magnesium, produce more CBD than do high levels of magnesium. As levels of magnesium increase relative to calcium, the concentration of THC decreases. The concentration of magnesium and iron in leaves is positively correlated to THC levels. The recommended ideal pattern nutrient application for cannabinoid production is said to be high nitrogen, high potassium, low calcium, and medium magnesium during the first 2 months of growth, continuing high nitrogen and potassium, medium magnesium, and increasing the calcium during the next 6 to 8 weeks. followed by decreased nitrogen and potassium and calcium, and increasing the magnesium through the flowering phase. So that's what I sent her in response to her question about what is the connection between nitrogen levels and THC levels. It's the only thing I could find. DM me or send me an email if you want a direct link to that, and I can send it to you. All right. And that is all I have in my social media feed this week. Let's move along and talk a little bit about the report from the Cannabis Frontline. First article I want to read from comes from the Marijuana Moment. It is entitled, China Must Import More Hemp from U.S. Under New Trade Deal. This was put together by Kyle Yeager. It starts off, hemp, which was federally legalized under the 2018 Farm Bill, is one of a long list of agricultural products that China agreed to import on a large scale over the next 2 years as part of the international agreement that was signed on Wednesday. While the deal didn't specify just how much more hemp China will be importing, the document states that the country must spend at least $12.5 billion more than they did in 2017 on more than 200 agricultural commodities, including cannabis plants, for calendar year 2020. The following year, it must spend at least $19.5 billion more. Included in the deal is a particular form of cannabis which is referred to as true hemp. While cannabis has been cultivated in China for thousands of years, the country has only recently begun expanding the industry domestically. Part of the delay has to do with strict anti-drug laws, but the legalization has spread internationally. More businesses are getting into hemp, and particularly CBD market. So as I've said before, and I'm going to say it again, if you have the land, start to grow hemp. Okay, America's about to export a lot more hemp in this coming year. If you need help learning how to grow hemp, reach out to me. I can help you do that. But yeah, trip out. China's about to buy a whole bunch more hemp from us. The other thing I want to talk about comes out of New Jersey. And this article comes from Normal. That is normal.org. Go over there, get educated, and then become a member. And this was put together by Paul Armentano. And it starts off, the New Jersey Supreme Court has affirmed that an employee is eligible to have his medical marijuana costs reimbursed by his employer. Justices rejected the contention that cannabis is ineligible for reimbursement under the state's workers' compensation law because it is illegal federally. And the opinion wrote was this: because we conclude the order does not require employers to process, manufacture, or distribute marijuana, but only to reimburse petitioners for his purchase of medical marijuana, we discern no conflict between the CSA, the Federal Controlled Substance Acts, and the MMA, the New Jersey Compassionate Use Marijuana, the New Jersey's Compassionate Use Medical Marijuana Act. They further argue that the plaintiff's use of medical marijuana to treat his chronic pain arising from the work-related injury was both reasonable and necessary. So trip out. This guy in New Jersey is getting their employer to reimburse them for their medical marijuana. Okay, and the employer was trying to fight it because since marijuana is illegal federally, they were like, well, no, we don't want to have to pay for a federally illegal drug. But the judges said, you know what, it doesn't really fall under that jurisdiction. It doesn't really fall under that idea. We're not asking the employer to handle the cannabis in any way. We're just asking them to pay for something that's legal in that state as a treatment. So that's a pretty cool precedent. I want to see how many other states are actually, or how many other people in different states are actually going to go through with this and, try to get that from the insurance companies. It's going to be really interesting. That is awesome to see. And the final story I want to read also comes to us from Normal. And the title reads, Adult Use Marijuana Law Associated with Less Binge Drinking by Young Adults on College Campuses. It starts off, the enactment of adult use cannabis access laws is associated with decreased rates of binge drinking by college students ages 21 or older, according to data published in the Journal of Addictive Behavior. Researchers affiliated with the Oregon State University compared self-reported drug and alcohol use among nearly 1 million college students over 10 years, from 2008 to 2018. They reported that binge drinking prevalence among those between the ages of 21 and 26 fell by 10% in jurisdictions where adult use cannabis access was regulated as compared to other states. Investigators reported no increase in the use of controlled substances other than marijuana, except for the use of sedatives by those under the age of 21. I wonder what that's about. Authors concluded students 21 ages and over binge drinking decreased following RML, recreational marijuana legalization, We speculate that legalizing recreational marijuana use may temper this effect, such that college students over the age of 21 who otherwise would have engaged in binge drinking continue to use marijuana instead. A substitution effect of RLM on college students' binge drinking could have important public health implications. Hell yes, it could. Let me tell you by experience. Do you know how many times I had to take people to the hospital in college to get their stomach pumped because people just drank too much? 4. I think 4 in 1 year. Now, I don't know if I just hung out with a lot of heavy partiers who couldn't handle it. But, and I don't know if you've ever seen anybody ever get their stomach pumped. It's a trip. And it's not a fun fucking ending to the evening. So if weed was legal when I was in college, there would have been a lot less drinking and a lot less trips to the emergency room. That's for sure. But that's awesome to read and that's awesome to listen to. I'm glad we finally have that data. Yet another reason to legalize cannabis in your state, everybody. Now, while we're on the subject of legalization, I need to talk about something. This is an election year. I'm going to start giving you a hard time about registering to vote. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Don't care. None of my business. What I do need you to do is get signed up and voting. Just vote. Not that big of a deal. It doesn't take that long. It doesn't hurt. They don't take blood. Okay? You don't have to tell anybody who you vote for, but what I do need you to do is go out there and get registered to vote. Okay? Be part of the system. Come on. Let's fix things that are wrong, both about cannabis and everything else that may bug you. But get involved, please. Okay? And that, brothers and sisters, is the report from the Cannabis Frontline. Now next, I'm going to play a conversation that I recorded while I was talking to my buddy Jaime Campbell. And he's the founder of GreenCo, which specializes in digital marketing for cannabis companies and cannabis brands, dispensaries and whatnot. And I was on the phone with him last week just mostly complaining about just some of the hurdles that everybody runs into in the cannabis industry about advertising. And he was sharing with me some of the things that he has to do to get some of his clients just, out in the open and known. So it was a really cool conversation. It was kind of a spur-of-the-moment conversation. I didn't have anything prepared for him. It was just something, since we were on the phone, I'm all, dude, let me just record this real quick. I'll do an intro, and then we'll just keep talking, because there was also a huge portion of that conversation at the beginning that we didn't record. But what we got on tape is pretty good, man. So give me a few minutes. I'm going to play a little bit of music and put that on for you. So check it out, everybody. Today, I kind of wrangled my good friend Jaime Campbell to get on the phone with me and talk more about advertising with cannabis. Jaime, brother, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks a lot, Alex. I'm looking forward to the talk.
Yeah, we've been talking, you and I have been talking about this particular thing for a while, since we, kind of got to know each other. Before we really get too far into a conversation, you are a marketing strategist that specializes in cannabis, right?
Yes, I've been doing the marketing thing for 5-6 years, mainstream, and I've been a cannabis consumer and advocate and aficionado or whatever for my whole life. So it was a real natural fit to just jump all the way in and try to fix some of these problems. And I'm doing my best, but it's every day is it's a struggle. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, it's frustrating for, I think, anybody in the industry just to try to figure out what's going on. But you're based in Delaware, right?
Yes, so that makes it even a little more difficult, because I'm not, not plant touching, obviously, but I'm not even in a legal state, recreation, adult use wise. So, and it's a terrible medical program. So we're as far as you could be on the East Coast, you know what I mean? From, a legal market like you guys have out there. So that just makes it just a couple steps, of difference. It's coming in from the outside, so that's good in a way, but it's also just you're so disconnected from a legal regulated market like you have.
What kind of medical do you have? Does Delaware have?
Yeah, since 2011 we've had a medical program. It's got very few qualifying conditions, very few. Cards are hard to get. You need a bona fide relationship with a doctor, which you can buy for $300. But, the problem is that there were only a couple dispensaries up until recently. And it's just, some patients have to drive an hour, to get overpriced mids. You know what I mean? It's a shame that it's like that. And it's been like that for years. So besides having 5 dispensaries now for a state of 1 million people, it's just a really weak program, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better until maybe we go adult use.
5 dispensaries?
Yeah, now.
Wow.
We're excited to have that. Yeah, the state's only 90 miles long, you know what I mean? So you're not driving super far, but if you're a patient, you know what I mean? And there is no delivery, you know what I mean? It's really, it's the exact opposite of a robust medical program like some of our neighboring states, Pennsylvania, Maryland. They have relatively incredible medical programs,
Sure. And, and I wondered, do the politicians in Delaware realize that, okay, so you make it medically acceptable for certain conditions, but yet you make it hard to get, you're just opening the door for just more black market activity? Because
absolutely. Yeah.
They're there to fill the gap.
The whole thing was just to appease somebody. I don't know who it was, but they were forced to, they had to just turn the screws to get it to where they've even gotten it now. You know what I mean? And it's just bizarre that only a government base could make something take so long and be so ineffective when it's clearly what the people want.
Yeah, it sounds like Delaware went the route of California and tried to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, and we're not a ballot state either. So it can't be an initiative or a question, at the polls. It is only by legislation. So we have a very democratic, state, democratic governor, but they're not interested. You know what I mean? So it's just mired and mired. And we have issues with home grow. There's no home grow component to all these bills they write. There's issues with Second Amendment rights, and you can't really have a gun and have a marijuana card.
Hey, that sounds exactly like California's program was.
Yeah, I think they all echo each other. I feel like we're years behind everybody else as far as getting over some of those hurdles.
Well, fuck, man. Yeah, I guess what can we do? Can you vote to change the ballot initiative? Well, I don't know. But
no, you have to. The only thing we can do, that's not really an option here, even though I think some border states of ours, there is a way you could do that by petition. There's no chance of that here. So you just have to call your state senators. You have to call your state House representatives and just let them know that this is what we, the people of Delaware, want. And we're trying, but it just seems very far-fetched. The governor, as it stands, would veto it, even if it made it through. They started in the House here, and they have something called HB 110 that's got some traction here and there, and it's never really gotten anywhere. And the bills they're putting out, we don't really like I said, the home grow. They want to come and check your plants every 3 months so they can come in your, it's just a really bad bill. And I'm not an incrementalist, you know what I mean? I want a bill that's right, or don't put it through. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
We've waited this long. You know what I mean? Let's do it right. So even if it got through the House, got through the Senate, it's not going to get, it's going to get vetoed by our governor. So it's, we're in a tough spot.
Well, this is an election year as far as like a lot of people come out for presidential election. So hopefully you guys get something a little better worked out. But the reason I wanted to talk to you was, I don't know if it's to commiserate or just to compare notes about all the different ways that a lot of people in the industry have been denied access or just had a hard time advertising a brand of cannabis. Just the amount of either double talk that we get. One person will say one thing and then somebody else would be like, no, you can't advertise. You can't put that out. Whether it's like we were saying earlier, it's Facebook or Instagram, even though they're owned by the same, their Instagram's owned by Facebook. And it doesn't seem like it doesn't matter what state you're in, whether you're in a legal rec state or in a just medical state. We're all in a state of confusion.
That doesn't matter at all. And that's what blew me away at first. You know what I mean? Because I understood that, hey, listen, I have this product, So then I went, once it was legal in Canada, why can't I run my Facebook ads in Canada? You know what I mean? Well, they don't have an answer for you. They don't care. They just don't like it. And I believe that comes from the top, maybe. Maybe they just, Facebook's big. And maybe there's outside influencers that just don't believe, because of the federal scheduling, that it's just something that they should, some people just don't want to touch anything that's federally illegal. And maybe it comes down from that. But yeah, state by state, doesn't matter. Even if I don't advertise about cannabis, I could try a Facebook or an Instagram ad that said, "Hey man, let's go to the polls this November and vote." Not one way or the other. And they wouldn't let it go through because it was my cannabis marketing company's page that was trying to boost it. So it got shut down right from the gate. So I can only rely on paid posts to get some traction. And I set it just to legal states. I set it to only people over 21. I mean, I followed every possible, guideline that you could, make me do to make sure that I'm only reaching an audience that is allowed to view cannabis related content even. You know what I mean? So, they continually denied me. Then they shut down all of my accounts.
So let me take you back a bit. So even like the Canadian Facebook Canada, where it's completely written into the law, it's legal. They weren't allowing you to put your ads up or to promote your ads.
No, it was a blanket thing. It was it just those kind of ads. It's not like with Google. Like I can get a Google ad through for almost anything in Canada and the United States. Just because there's so many different layers to it and different things that you got to make sure are right. A lot of moving parts.
Really, because
Facebook and Instagram, it's blanket.
Well, then I need
anything that's got, even because I got an MMJ ad through for a while, and I thought that was my angle. Even MMJ got shut down because they shut down my account at the root. Because the page, like there's different levels. Like with Google, just say there's the account level, and there's the ad level. There's the keyword level. So there's all this different content that has to meet certain guidelines. If the root website is not something that's going to be allowed, that they'll shut you down right there. And that's kind of what Facebook and Instagram have done. Just because the page is based on something that they don't, and I made sure the word cannabis was in there. I want to test this from the gate. I'm not lying about what my product is. You know what I mean? I'm not ashamed of it. So, they just didn't like the fact that it was a cannabis business. And now that they've reversed that a little bit and they've eased up, and I think they've allowed it some places, Facebook is really, really bad with their support, and they always have been. So getting an answer takes weeks sometimes, and there's just no, but they do have this support inbox where you can go back and forth, and I take screenshots, and I'm using it all for my lawsuit someday, hopefully. But they actually told me, they're like, listen, I gave one last appeal, and they said, your accounts were disabled incorrectly, and, they will be reversed or something to that effect. And I was like, oh, my God, great, So this was December 17th. And then a couple weeks go by and still nothing, All my accounts are just like, they're just not there, They're disabled. So I finally got on a chat with some other division of support, and he says, oh, yeah, that's, because of the cannabis. I'm like, yeah, but what about what this lady said? Oh, yeah, that was a different case in a different part of our support, or, some double talk, like you said. And basically, they were very swift with their answer. And he said he took it off of the inbox channel, the messaging channel, and he said, I'm going to send you an email separately. I was like, yeah, great, because that's what Google tells me. They send me an email every day saying, we're going to send you another email tomorrow, and it takes 2 weeks. This came the next day and said, yeah, we're not going to allow it because of this and that and all the same reasons. And it's like, oh, wow, that's great, man. Thanks a lot. I've wasted all this time, all this effort. I haven't wasted any money because they won't take my money. I have to tag people. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do organically to get social traction with, Facebook, but I don't know. It's a lot of work. And
it is a lot of work, and just the way that it's just also a really big time suck, especially when you go through all those hoops and they're still like, look, we're not going to allow it. I've run into the same thing. I've always wondered why the algorithm tells me, hey, you should boost this post, and then like, no, we're not going to allow it. But there are there are some social network platforms that we can go to, at least. I mean, there is Strainly, and there is Cannabis. Now, we're trying to promote both of them just for that same thing, so we can actually have an open access. not just to a curated audience of people who already enjoy cannabis, but the difficulty is always seems to how do you get it, whatever your brand is, whatever your product, whatever your company, in front of new eyeballs, or new ears, and that's what we're all struggling with, and the different ways that we kind of dance around it is really interesting.
Yeah, and ever since the beginning, with some of this restricted content, there's been these options, traffic routes and Mantis and Adistry, a lot of these private display networks that they call it 420 friendly, traffic routes. I don't know if I mentioned that as a new one that's big. But they got a huge buy-in, so for a small, guy like me who's bootstrapping his business, I can't afford the buy-in. And most of my clients, unfortunately, can't either. You know what I mean? So it's like, we go to podcast advertising and, other places where you can really stretch your marketing dollar, especially if you don't have much of a budget to start with. You really need to stretch it. And it's like, at least you're in market and, you're seeing people like LeafLink and, things like that. It's great because you're, like you said, you're in market, but it almost comes with a hefty price too. And it's not for everybody.
No. And as you said, especially when you're just starting a label or starting a brand or your company, and you're looking around to all these other issues, all these just avenues that, like you said, are a bit of a barrier to enter. That's one other barrier of entry to the legal market.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, it just takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And, one thing about paid advertising is if you can throw enough money at something, you can scale it quickly. Or say you need to buy a following, or you need to move to a different state and kind of get your brand out there before you move into there officially. If you can't throw any money at it and just kind of get those instant results, organic can take forever. And some people just don't have that kind of time, especially when this market moves as fast as it does, because the big money, they're all just sitting there waiting to see what's going to happen. They know they can put ads in certain markets, but they're afraid because their brand is, maybe not associated with something like that yet. So they're all just kind of sitting there waiting in the wings for something to break. And so far, nothing has.
Well, I've always wondered about that. Like the big money is truly sitting back waiting. It almost seems like they're waiting for the rest of us to get out of the way. So once it goes legal, they can pretty much just flood the market.
Yeah, well, we're going to run out of time eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, you can only sit for so long and wait for a business to take off, and just keep throwing, good money after bad. And the deeper your pockets are, the longer you can wait. But it's been a long time. You know what I mean? This should have been fixed by now, I think. At least with Facebook and Instagram. I mean, come on, it's 2020. You know what I mean? We're legal in 11, 12, 13, 14 states. I mean, what more is it going to take? I mean, is it going to have to be federal descheduling? I mean, I don't know. I just don't even think that. What difference would that make? Is that the real deal breaker for them? I don't understand. It's just such a silly policy. But again, they have all the cards. If you don't like their network, don't be on it. Yeah,
well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, the fact that they're just a private company anyways, to be like, for that reason, yeah, well, you don't like it, that's fine. You can go somewhere else. But, it's the somewhere else that's the issue. And that's why, I try to tell as many people as I can about these other networks to be on, just to, give us a fighting chance. What is the saying? Rising tide raises all boats.
Yeah, the abundance is there for everybody, but again, like these social networks that keep popping up, like it's like, oh man, I just got all these Instagram followers. You know what I mean? It took me 3 years to do that, and they got shut down. I had to get them all back, and some of the breeders. I mean, there's people that have huge Instagram traffic, and their followers will go wherever they tell them because they want to know about the new strains, they want about the new genetics. You know what I mean? There's a cutting edge to that, like you said, Strainly. I mean, that's real in market. You know what I mean? The only people that are on Strainly are people that are serious about cannabis in the industry. So they will go there quickly, but it's like, God, it's just more. I got to set this up again. It's just one more thing to look at. I mean, I'm trying to look at Twitter now. This is, I've been on Twitter for 12 years, and this was my year that I'm really going to try to get something back from Twitter.
Don't tell me
get something back from Twitter. You gotta spend some time on it.
I just got on Twitter. I didn't know how Twitter works. I had to. Yeah, it's just I don't know if I have that kind of time for another network, like you said, to set up the whole profile and then
Yeah, you got to pick and choose, and then you got to be there for a while. You got to bring your followers over if you can. The only thing about it is Twitter is very cannabis friendly. LinkedIn, very cannabis friendly. So, they're kind of places you have to be.
Hey, so so I'm not really present on LinkedIn. I think I have a profile. God, I've got to go back and check. How does LinkedIn actually work, though? I mean, I just thought, I don't know, man. What's a good strategy for
business
LinkedIn?
Version of Facebook? It's got the same layout, same kind of connection thing. Most people only go on LinkedIn when they're looking for a job.
Yeah, that's what I'd figure. That's why I don't think I've ever been. Yeah, I think I've been on LinkedIn.
Depending
maybe
on the
times.
industry you're in, like if you're in marketing or if you're in insurance or all kinds of other mainstream businesses, it's really good for your in-network stuff. Sometimes they have paid options. It's kind of hard to explain, but they've been working on it for so long now that they've finally gotten. It's kind of like Facebook for business people. You know what I mean? It's kind of fun. It's there. There's a feed. And you can post stuff and get feedback. But the thing about it is it's super cannabis friendly. So all the industry has flocked there. So I highly recommend you take care of your LinkedIn profile and make 2020 the year that you just try to give it enough to get something back out of it, because there's a lot of good connections to be made. And
all right, I'll go.
You can advertise on there. I've done paid posts for GreenCo. I haven't gotten anything from it because I don't have the budget. LinkedIn's expensive. You know what I mean? You're looking at $25 just to put something out there and get a few clicks.
Sure. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, man, I'll go by there, check it out again. Yeah.
But there's 24 hours in a day. You know what I mean? So there's literally only so many profiles you can optimize.
No, and that's the thing, dude. I've broken it down to where I only allow myself an hour on social media. That's across all platforms. Because if not, it's a fucking time suck.
I spend an hour. I'm on Instagram 3 or 4 hours a day now. Because I'm really trying to. That's another one that I've just been working so hard on because all I have is organic, So
sure.
I've got over 2,000 followers for GreenCo. I'm just trying to get there,
I do, yeah. And I wish I had. Oh Jesus Christ! Well, like you just said, man, I just wish I had that kind of time because I have to cut myself off to an hour because then I have to dedicate like at least 3 hours a day of just content and the rest of. In my grow, the website, the podcast, and then, yeah, man. If you figure out a really easy way to do all that, as far as the social media part, man, let me know.
Yeah, you hire somebody. That's it. That's the easiest way to do anything.
Well,
just throw money at it.
Yeah, I like that solution.
Yeah, but for bootstrapping purposes, I mean, it's ridiculous. You have to give so much of yourself to build these profiles and optimize these profiles and. When you feel like you don't get anything back out of it, then like maybe you're being shadow banned and like, you have this great post with this awesome content, a link to your landing page, and then you get like 2 likes. You're like, whoa, what's that about? You know what I mean? Even your friends won't like it. And it's like maybe they don't even see it.
It does. It kind of sounds like you're out there in the wilderness, man, like by yourself. Right. Like, what? That's it?
Yeah, well, organic reach is, if you just say you have 1,000 Facebook followers, if any post you do, you'll be lucky that even 100 of them see it. More like 20 of them. 2% is the low average for impressions, of your followers.
Is that right?
So. You 2%. Have to buy in if you can't buy followers. You know what I mean? It's like they kind of got you every way.
But they won't let me buy followers. Fucking Facebook. Anyways, I try not. Yeah, man. So, Jamie. Hey, man, thanks for getting on the phone with me, commiserating with me about this, giving me a little instruction on LinkedIn. I'm gonna go check it out. Man.
Absolutely, man. I enjoy talking about it as much as it frustrates me because I spend so much time on it. And if you can spread the word at least and everybody's in the same boat, at least maybe eventually we'll all, kind of get something out of it because a lot goes into it and there's only so many hours in the day.
Absolutely, for sure. Don't give up, bro. That's what you
Yeah, I
just
can't give
fucking-
up. That's the thing. I'll never give up. You know,
going.
so as much as I say I want to, I know better. I enjoy it too much.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, dude, come on. The cannabis culture, come on, man. There's nothing like it. All right, but do me a favor, though. Tell everybody how they can find you, how they can find GreenCo.
Yeah, the easiest way is just my website, greenco.website, just like it sounds, GREENCO.website. You can email me, jamie@greenco.email, just like it sounds. Or you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm on all of them, Facebook. You know, my website's really, really easy to find. If you Google cannabis SEO, cannabis pay-per-click, I come up real well.
Far out, man. Well, thanks again, Jamie. Do me a favor. Do not hang up. Everybody else, I'm going to play a little bit of music, and I'll be right back. So there you go, everybody. Those are just some of the ways we struggle to advertising cannabis. If you're in the cannabis industry and you have an advertising horror story you want to share, go ahead and send it my way. The email is inmygrow@gmail.com. And don't forget, if you have a question or a comment about this episode, you can also send me an email. Or you can find me on the social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Cannabis, that is @InMyGrowShow. Speaking of which, I want you to think about something. If you're in the cannabis industry and you have an Instagram profile, you need to switch over to the cannabis-friendly social media network Cannabis, because you won't have to live with the fear of having your profile shut down, especially if you create cannabis content. You won't have to be afraid of them shutting it down because of that. You won't have to be afraid of losing all your followers. Just start with the Cannabis. Just start with a social media application that is there for the cannabis industry. I'm not part of Cannabis. I'm just part of the community. I have nothing to do with putting it together, but I truly do believe in it. It's a great place to socialize with like-minded people who just enjoy cannabis or talking about cannabis or even just learning about cannabis. That is the Cannabis app. Now, I want to thank Jaime Campbell for getting on the phone with me and letting me record the conversation with him. If you are a cannabis company or a cannabis brand that needs some help in the digital marketing sphere, reach out to Jaime Campbell at GreenCo, and you can find a link to his website at the bottom of the show notes of this episode. Well, brothers and sisters, that's all I have to share with you today. That is the end of my notes. As always, I want to thank all of the artists who let me use their music to help me put this show together. And don't forget, if this show has educated you, entertained you, or even given you a little escape from your day, you can go over to patreon.com/InMyGrowShow and leave a financial donation so you can help keep the show going. I use those funds to pay for different hosting fees, to buy equipment, to go to different conferences, to put the content together. It really helps. Now, if you don't want to leave a donation at Patreon, you can go to inmygrow.com. You can click on the Support the Show tab and buy a t-shirt. And another way to help the show financially is that you can click on the Amazon link at the top of the show notes before you go shopping, because that just lets them know that we sent you and we get a commission. Now, if you can't help the show financially, don't worry about it. I get it. But here's how you can help. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to it. Subscribe to the website inmygrow.com, and then go over to YouTube, search for the In My Grow Show with Alex, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And after you do all that subscribing, do one more thing. Tell 3 other people about the show. Really simple, really easy. Well, mis amigos, my friends, I'm going to get on out of here. You know I love you very much, and remember to always grow, learn, and teach.